was just going to ask Katie if she'd start the recording again, so thank you very much. So welcome everybody to the last section of our board meetings. I know, and we've talked about this recently, haven't we? I know they're a long day, and there's a lot to take in, and indeed the content of today's board meeting has been super, really important stuff. But I say that only in the context as chair of I don't want anybody to feel rushed in these last few things. So they are just as important as any other part of the agenda, but by the nature of a lengthy meeting, as you get towards the end, of course, we're all feeling it. So we'll finish with our partnership dashboard, and we'll be hearing from our chair of our audit committee and thinking about the board assurance framework. And then there'll be one item for approval, which is the standing financial instructions and scheme of delegation. So again, of course, important matters that deserve our full attention. I hope people are reasonably refreshed for this last little section then. Okay. So let's get into that then. Shall we turn to John as our Director of Strategy and Integration, and just ask, we've received the partnership dashboard, of course, John, and the cover paper. Anything we need to think about, please?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to rush, but we absolutely can take this as read. You know, I make no apologies. I'm a broken record for saying what I always say. Partnerships doesn't have its own academy, so we bring it directly here to board. But I really hope we don't rely on a single side of A4 and 4 metrics for our assurance. Actually, I think we've heard about partnerships throughout today's meeting. The section on EDI, the strategy, the analysis done by Carl and colleagues, the waiting list analysis, Mel's chief exec update. There was an extensive piece about the activity in place there. Of course, we recently had updates from Lucy Cole-Wyatt talking about the strategy and indeed about the 5 reset priorities. We had Shaq and Louise Clark with us at board development last month. So there is lots and lots going on. We've heard about lots of it today and in our recent development meeting. So I'm very happy to answer questions on the dashboard. I don't think I need to go through it line by line. And I think there's a strong story to tell on partnerships, which I think comes out in most of the papers that we discuss in this meeting. So I'll leave it there and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, John. And of course, we're helped by the text in the papers there with the attached to the dashboard. John, I just, one note I'd made, and it sounds like I've just thought of it because of the nature of today's meeting, it isn't the case, but when I read the papers, I wondered whether for reducing inequalities, you felt that we might be close towards moving towards green. So the text suggests we're doing rather well there, but do you think are there still maybe a couple of gaps that don't allow us to consider ourselves towards green?
Well, my nervousness is we're strong on inputs, but I couldn't tell you where we are on outputs. I don't think we've got a satisfactory set of metrics for the difference that what we are doing is making. So I'm comfortable that we're trying to throw the kitchen sink at it, but I'm not yet confident in saying, and here's the difference. Now, there are people who will say quite rightly, yeah, but it's like turning a super tank around. Inequalities, you know, the causes are multifactorial and you know, it'll take a decade, etc. All right, fair enough. But I think there must be some things, there may be proxies, but there must be some things we can do to demonstrate a difference that, you know, is being made by the activity we're doing. So maybe an amber is a bit cautious. Maybe it should be an amber heading towards green. But I'd only really feel comfortable saying I'm confident that our work on reducing inequalities should be green if I could demonstrate in some way that what we're doing is making a difference. And I'm just not sure I can at the moment. And it's one of the things we're struggling with a bit, actually, a meaningful metric for this.
That's entirely fair, John. It sits with you. I think I reflected on items 10 and then 18 and 19 today really do suggest a very strong and powerful desire on our part. But I take your point about outcome measures, and thank you for that, John. Thank you. Colleagues, was there anything in relation to our partnership work and the dashboard that anybody wanted to raise, please? Are we content to note? Yeah, I think, as John said, it has formed a thread throughout our discussions today as well, of course. So, and indeed, some of that great stuff on the waiting list analysis, primary care involvement, work at place is very strong. Yeah, okay. thanks everybody. If there's nothing to add there, I'll move to section 4E, which is audit and assurance. Again, we're helped by Barry's report from Audit Committee 7th of February, but I'll turn to Barry and ask whether there would be anything he would wish to emphasise, please, for our notes. We're being asked to note and be assured by the report. Barry, anything to add, please?
Thanks, Max. As usual, my reports are designed to be pretty well sort of comprehensive and provide all the information I'm trying to convey. Happy to take any questions. I think if I was asked to point to 3 items in here, which I'd just like to pay particular reference to. First of all, internal audit, another good set of results, either high or significant assurance across the piece, which is good to see. Secondly, the committee received its first biannual report, providing assurance that we are in compliance with the new risk management strategy, which is further good progress in that regard. And thirdly, something which the committee has been looking at for some time now as part of its annual self-assessment process is does the committee feel assured as regards data quality within the trust? In all other respects, the committee has concluded it is happy. Data quality, we still struggle with that to know whether we have as much assurance as we should have. And we've agreed that Matthew, Paul, someone from internal audit and I will meet soon to sort of try and knock this on the head so that we can formally conclude on it at the April Audit Committee meeting. But other than that, happy to take any questions regarding the report more generally.
Thanks very much, Barry. Thank you. Noted regarding data quality. I hope I'm not repeating the same point, Barry, but the one note I'd made was regarding the follow-up of internal audit recommendations, that an assurance rating is not appropriate there. Further efforts still required to improve the rationale for delay and latest update. Does the report articulate just what you'd want to say, or would there be anything else you'd want to bring to our attention to in that particular point?
I must admit, since I took on this role, it's always frustrated me slightly that Audit Yorkshire think it inappropriate to give an assurance rating on that. Right. It's their standard procedure. I think underlying all of that, what we're seeing is good and improved action with regard to follow up on internal audit recommendations. I guess there's always room for further improvement, but there's nothing there of concern which I wish to bring to the attention of the board.
That was my point, really, Barry. Thank you for that. Yes. So, colleagues, that is clearly got a grip of the audit committee work. Is there anything that's arisen that anybody would like to check? Or again, are we content to note? I think we are. Thank you, everybody. And shall I move, therefore, to item 23, our board assurance framework and high-level risks. And I think of late, you'll have noted that we turned to Laura, actually, to help us with this. And again, of course, we're all available for discussions or comments, should that be required. But Laura, shall I turn to you, please, for anything to bring to our attention in our board assurance framework and risks?
Yeah, thank you, Max. I think I'll be fairly brief here. There's just a few things I wanted to highlight. So starting with the board assurance framework, as we discussed at the last meeting, the 2 risks which relate to staffing have now been combined into 1 risk, and that's now aligned to both strategic objectives. So the objective to provide outstanding care and to be one of the best NHS employers. So just 1 risk now aligned to both objectives. There haven't been any change in the risk scores on the BAF or the assurance level. No updates to make the board aware of there. Around the financial risks, which Matthew's highlighted, just highlighting that the position will be more challenging next year. So the score is a 12 at the moment, but it is likely to increase for next year. So just wanted to make the board aware of that one. And these risks have now been in place for coming up to a year, so I'll be meeting with the lead directors to review those and present an updated position to the board in May. That was everything on the assurance framework, so just looking at the high level risks. Yeah. So most recently we just had 1 new risk which was added around the respect process. That was an existing risk, but it had increased in score from 10 to 15, so it's now on the high level risk register. And that was accepted by ETM. And then there were 3 risks which had changed in score, all of which had reduced. However, there was one risk relating to the haematology consultant team, where it was agreed to keep at a score of 16 and therefore stay on the high level risk register, just because some of the expected improvements in the staffing position there hadn't sort of come to fruition. So it was agreed it was appropriate to keep that as a 16 for now. And that was everything I wanted to highlight.
No, that's great, Laura. Thanks very much. I think just for a short time, Laura, your camera and microphone froze a little there, just in the middle.
Sorry.
But I don't think much was missed. To be fair, I don't think it was just me. I think colleagues noted you just freezing a little there. So, directors, we have our board assurance framework, and we've heard from Laura as to what the summary is with the risks. Of course, we've had the papers before, and much of that may well have been under discussion in the academies. But nobody wants to rush through a board assurance framework and high-level operational risks. So may I just check whether was there any further detail anybody required, or any note of anything that anybody would like to make in relation to these, please? And if not, we confirm that we're assured that all risks on our high-level risk register and BAF are appropriately recognised and recorded, and that the actions being taken are appropriate and within appropriate timescales. We feel confident in that? Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Of course, this is just an opportunity to bring it together. I realise that it's a matter for our attention through much of our work. So if we are content to be assured by that particular report, thank you, Laura. That's extremely helpful. We'll go to the final item of today's board. There being no other business, we can move to decide whether we're content to approve the amendments to standing financial instructions and scheme of delegation. Shall I turn to Matthew and just ask if there's anything Matthew would like to steer our attention towards in asking this decision of board? Matthew, please.
Well, I'm really disappointed you didn't say I'm saving the best till last, but anyway, we'll move on.
It's natural.
No, so it's the standard review of the documents, and it's here for approval. I can take the papers I've read, but they have been through internal approvals through ETM and audit committee, and thank you to Barry and the audit committee for the comments that they provided. It provides updates on the latest national guidance, particularly in relation to like operational planning. We've linked it to updates to internal guidance, such as the budgetary management framework and capital planning framework, and then some of the statutory procurement changes that align to public procurement regulations, particularly around tender thresholds. So it's not a fundamental rewrite. It's just to reflect more up-to-date information. So it's brought here for approval today.
Thanks very much, Matthew, and helpfully the brief analysis as well gives us the material changes to both of those documents. So, colleagues, were there any questions? Matthew helpfully brought to our attention that ETM executive team meeting and our audit committee have indeed considered and been listened to in respect to the comments that were made. Are we content to approve? It would seem so. That's great. Thanks very much, everybody. There's unanimous approval, Matthew. Thank you for the best item on the agenda, left till last. Thank you. Thanks very much. There being no other business, I'll just check whether, does anybody think we've raised anything? There'll be some actions raised, of course, and much of today, I think, has been about insight and improving our own decision making, given the briefings and information we've had. But is there anything we feel has arisen that ought to be referred to board committees, academies, or indeed elsewhere? I think naturally that will happen through a couple of the actions that have been caught. And in fact, Karen, our chief nurse, was very helpful today in terms of suggesting a couple of additional sessions, briefing to governors and NEDs, some board development stuff. That's all been captured, I do know that. So if we are content that we've captured things that we should, I brought to your attention before the important information in the annexes. Thank you, everybody, for what I think has been an incredibly strong board meeting. I think the content and discussions have been very powerful today and helped us. It's great insight. And let's remember, this only happens 5 times a year when we come together like this and constitute as a board. Of course, we're every day working on something, but it's important that we get the content right of these. So I'm grateful for that. I think that's been really useful. Okay, so I will formally call this board meeting to a close and remind colleagues that we will be meeting again